Hi, it's Chris here. I hope you're doing well. I'm just doing this quick video ahead of watching the video today, just to tell you that what you're going to watch is absolutely going to blow you away. So please do make the time to watch it from start to finish. Even if you have to watch a little bit now and a little bit later on, I can guarantee that the content that you're going to get is going to be absolutely invaluable to your business. I've learned so much from doing this session today from Lexi, and I'm sure you guys will learn equally as much information as well. If obviously you've got any questions for Lexi directly, you'll find her on LinkedIn, you'll find her on Facebook in all the usual places, and she'll be more than happy to give you the support that you need. But I can assure you, you'll enjoy today, and it's well worth making the time to maybe watch it again and maybe watch it a second time, because there'll be bits that you'll miss, I can assure you. Apologies for me, the video. I was extremely nervous running this today. It's only my second time doing it, but that really doesn't matter. So enjoy. If you've got any questions, then please do reach out to us. Wherever you've seen this video published, either of us will be more than happy to help you.
Okie dokie, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us this week at Ask the Expert. It's a new concept which I came up with probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to use my time on a Friday morning, which can sometimes be pretty quiet, to promote other small businesses who I'm connected to, and likewise use that little bit of time to kind of promote myself as well. So it's kind of a bit of a win-win situation. We're going to put the video today into social media so people can see it afterwards on Facebook and LinkedIn, and obviously pick that up. I think going forward, we're going to set up some kind of Facebook group as well, so that we can put some kind of content in there and keep people engaged in the group. So if you know people who want to join us, I've got bookings now until the end of this month. So I'm probably looking November onwards. So if you know anybody who wants to speak and they've got time to ask maybe around about 10 or 11 questions that we prepare in advance, so there's no kind of hidden agenda, then that would be absolutely fabulous. Guys, can I just ask, can you hear that hairdryer in the background or not?
No.
No, that's good. Okay, so my headset's working well, then it's cancelling out the background noise. Brilliant. Okay, so quick intro then. I'm Chris, and I run a business called Bridge Cloud Solutions. We're an IT provider based in Birmingham and in Essex, and our focus is around cybersecurity. And what I like to do is I like to work with companies to educate them around cybersecurity and really just prevent them from getting that nasty attack. It's quite a big thing right now, and where I can educate people around that, then I will. And obviously around that, I provide you just general IT support and help people when things aren't quite working out as well as they should. But people don't seem to listen to that kind of stuff, but they do seem to listen to security. So right now I'm talking more about cybersecurity for small businesses and awareness and training. I'll just get Lexi to do a quick intro as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lexi Black from Glade Digital, and I specialise in websites and digital marketing. In particular, my specialism is in organising chaos. So planning a website project can be a huge thing, especially when you consider all the photography, the content, the security and the updates and all the techie stuff as well as the design and the branding. So I pull in a bunch of different specialisms and experts, and I bring that project to life in a way that promotes your brand best and communicates effectively with your customers. So that's what I do.
Brilliant, cool. Do you want? Let's get Wimbledon and Chris to introduce themselves as well. I think that's a good idea, isn't it? Okay, cool. Unmute yourself, guys, and just introduce yourselves. So, Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. So, my name's Chris Widley. Long story, but the last 3 years, I've been in GCHQ, the National Cybersecurity Centre, where I've been working on basically small business, home worker, remote worker, cybersecurity. So I've been doing that with a company that was basically in the Cyber Accelerator, Chris, if you've heard of the Cyber Accelerator in GCHQ.
I haven't.
Okay, and then the company that I was in, we just put things on ice during the pandemic for a bit. So I've been working on a project with the police, which is a rollout of what they call cyber resilience centres across the UK. long story there. But anyway, but the West Midlands one is up and the East Midlands one is up. I was just telling Lexi and Chris about that. And then just latterly, we started an initiative which is called Cybersecurity Valley UK, where we're promoting basically everything cyber in Midlands, Wales, and the Southwest. Right. So what we're basically doing is we're building a cybersecurity ecosystem across all of those areas. And as we were discussing earlier, Chris, basically we're promoting everybody that's doing anything in cybersecurity within that ecosystem.
Sounds brilliant. Okay, that sounds really exciting. Brilliant. Vimal Chauhan, I think it is. Yeah. Hello.
Yep, you pronounced that right.
So,
in this crazy time, we've decided to set up a wedding card business.
okay.
Yeah, so we set up a company called Sapphire Wedding Cars in Leicester, and we have prestige cars from Rolls-Royces, Ghosts, Bentley Bentayga, and we're the only company in Leicester that has the brand new Mercedes Maybach.
Okay, cool.
So sorry, go on.
Fancy.
Are they just wedding cars? Can you not just go for a driving one and not get married?
Possibly. You could just pretend that you're getting married, and I'll take you out for a ride.
All right, then that's cool. I've already done that already, but I'll probably end up having to do it again one day. Who knows?
Yeah. You can renew your vows.
Yeah. Well, we do. To be fair, do you know what? Our wedding was a complete shambles. With Caroline not being well with one thing or another, it would be really nice actually to be able to do something like that. Okay. All right. Cool.
Well,
Anthony,
if you want to, then let us know.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We need to think about Caroline though, okay? Yeah. So my wife's a disabled lady, so we need to think about access and whatever you put. If there's something that we can do to help her, then that would be great. Even if it's just some nice pictures or something like that, it'd be nice. Okay, we'll talk about that again, Vimal.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to pop you back on mute now. Anthony, all I can see is a black screen, but are you able to introduce yourself? No? Oh,
hello.
yes. There he is.
Hi, no, so I just saw your post on Facebook, and I just thought it would be interesting to sort of have a listen in. So that's literally all I'm here for.
Okay, cool. Yeah, please do. Yeah, so just sit in the background and listen in and enjoy the session.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much.
Did you get to hear the introduction as to what we're doing today, so you understand the concept, or are you just going to kind of sit in the background?
Yeah, I was here. I was here at the beginning, so I heard all the.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Okay then, we'll crack on then, shall we? So, Lexi, you're starting for 10. So, okay, let's crack on with it then, shall we? So, Lexi, can you tell me? Can I really just build? Can I just bypass people like you and just build my own website with a website builder?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, there are a ton of great tools out there at the moment. Things like Squarespace, Wix, which I personally find quite irritating to use, but Squarespace is pretty good. And things like Shopify if you want an e-commerce solution. Hosting providers often have their own page builders as well. So places like GoDaddy, 123reg, 101, they tend to have a page builder software built in that you can use to put your site online quickly. The question isn't so much about whether you can do it. It's usually whether you want to do it. I literally spoke to a lady yesterday at a networking group, and she mentioned that she knows how to build a website in theory, and she's done that kind of thing before, but she runs an events business, which obviously this year she's had a lot of spare time. So she said if I was going to build a website, I would have done it by now, because it's not just quite as simple as dragging things together. The thing about these page builders as well is that it lacks the flexibility that you might want from your website. Flexibility around having users signing up, sorry, about the ownership of the design, because you're often using a professional template, which is already sort of credited to a designer or to license to Squarespace or Wix or wherever. Integrations can often be difficult as well because sometimes the code that they use isn't is their own style of code or their own sort of framework. So finding the exact way to integrate something can be difficult there as well. And you can't move it to another host if you're not happy with the service, which is something that I've started offering for people, for some people, if they've got a website on places like Squarespace and Wix, but they don't want to be with them anymore, either because they don't like the service, or they're paying too much on a monthly basis, or they want more features than they can provide. Then I'm rebuilding it with WordPress based on the content they already have. So there is a lot of move to self-hosted solutions these days, just for the sake of control and for the creative license as well. So yes, you can build your own website, but it can be time-consuming and sometimes a little bit more difficult than you think.
I think this thing about being able to move it and having that flexibility is the big one, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, because so many people get so kind of fed up with hosts and whatever else, and I'd imagine they're not very customer facing. There's no kind of interaction there, really. It's more, I've got a problem on email, and you're relying on kind of there's no kind of personal interaction, is there? There's no kind of
It's usually
relationship.
a support ticket and you're sort of left to figure things out by yourself. And sometimes there are tutorials, but you might want something that's not in a tutorial, and then it's a very limited community of where you can actually ask for that kind of support, because it's just, centered around that one page builder.
Okay. Well, let's move on to second question now. That's really good. It's really helpful. WordPress, why is it so popular? Everybody seems to build websites on WordPress now. What is it about it? I mean, obviously, wasn't it originally like a blogging tool or something like that, and it's now a website builder, but it just seems to be crazy, really. It's so popular. Why isn't there any alternatives out there?
So it started off as a blogging platform, and to a great extent it still is. That's kind of the main functionality that's already built into it. It started off on sort of WordPress.com. It became an open source project, so that lots of other contributors added to it and extended it. So the reason why it's so popular, and I say popular, I mean I looked it up the other day, and 455 million websites use WordPress in 2020, or over 455 million. And the reason being is because it's so easy to use, so easy to extend, and if their functionality doesn't exist for it, you can pretty much guarantee someone else has wanted that feature as well, and you'll be able to find it in the form of a plugin. Now, you're not going to want to have a plugin for everything, and I do warn people about sort of not overextending it too much with individual things that sometimes provide way more functionality than the tiny piece they need. But it is extremely extensible, and there is a massive community out there, as you can imagine, of developers and designers and and hosting solutions that are tailored towards WordPress to support it. So it is definitely evolved from a blogging platform. If you don't want to blog on your website, that's completely fine. You don't have to have one. But the capabilities, the e-commerce capabilities, the membership sites, the learning, online course websites, that can all be done with WordPress now. So it's come an awful long way. As regards to the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org, it sometimes trips some people up. Hi, Peter. It sometimes trips some people up, and so WordPress.com is very much like Squarespace and Wix. In the fact that it gives you the themes, and it gives you a set number of sort of approved plugins that you can add on. It's still based on the same software, but you can't then move that somewhere else necessarily. It is sort of a very limited as to what you can do with it, and it is designed more as a blogging platform. And you can add your own domain to it, so you don't have to have the WordPress.com at the end. But it's not yours, it still belongs to WordPress.com. Whereas WordPress.org, where you can download the source files from and then build a website from that on whatever host you like, that is yours to do with as you will. You can take away half the code and rebuild it if you wanted to. You could add all kinds of plugins. You could create your own plugins for it, use your own designs, and you can have a lot more flexibility. And so the website really does become yours, but it still has the support of that open source community around it to help keep things updated and safe, so you're not entirely on your own with a bunch of code that you don't know how to deal with or how to update to keep it safe.
Okie dokie. That's brill. So that explains why WordPress is so popular. Nice to see you, Peter. Thanks for popping along.
Nice to see you, Chris.
Okay. We're recording the session today, so if you want to kind of recap and see what we talked about initially, then please watch the recording after the meeting. So let's go on to question 3. So obviously everybody's using WordPress. What can we do to keep our WordPress websites safe and secure to prevent them from being hacked and whatnot?
Yeah, so one of the downsides to it being open source is that the code is fairly well known. It's not a mystery to people who might want to hack your site. That doesn't mean it's vulnerable by itself, but it does mean that there is a higher chance. So there are things that are available to put in place. But first, I just want to kind of understand, help people understand a little bit more about why websites get hacked. Because a lot of people don't think that they might be a target because it's just a small blog or it's just a a local business, and what could they possibly want with me? I don't have any payment details going through, that sort of thing. So the main 3 reasons are of why a website will get hacked is trolling, which is rare these days, but sometimes just to mess with someone else. If you happen to have a techie enemy, that can happen. Data theft, which again, if you have financial details going through your website, or if you store any personal details through contact forms or membership sites, that sort of thing, obviously you'll want to be able to keep those safe. But also DDoS networks, and the way that DDoS networks operates is that a little bit of code is inserted into your website, it adds it to a network, and then that can be used to target another website. For example, if I didn't like a certain political party, I could pay a DDoS provider, black market of course, to attack this political party's website. And if I did that, then it would everyone who visits all these smaller websites would be redirected, even if only just for half a second, redirected. And basically it's DDoS is distributed denial of service, so it floods this website with more traffic than it can handle, and even if it's only for a second, it's still trying to load all those files so it can send the website down. And that's a very common way at the moment of attacking someone online, is to just deny access to the services that website provides, or the information it's providing. So in that way, even small websites can be a target. And the how in how websites get hacked is that it can usually be through malicious code. So a dodgy plugin, or an older plugin that has security vulnerabilities. It's also things like data theft, so using, this is important, of using a unique password for everything you do, because if your password gets leaked from one place, it can be used elsewhere if it's the same. And also using things like admin as your WordPress username is really dangerous, because that means that a lot of the time people don't have to guess your username as well. So they just need to brute force, and they'll set up a bot to just keep trying different passwords, and they'll scan for things that are relevant to your business, but they'll try and use this constant flow of passwords until they get it right. Obviously, having 2 things they need to guess is going to drastically reduce the chances. So there are tools out there to keep WordPress websites safe. One of the ones I like to use is WordFence. There's also iTheme Security, which I've heard good things about, though I personally do prefer WordFence because I'm more familiar with it, and they also have a pro version which offers even more security. And it does things like preventing brute force attacks. So if someone keeps trying the wrong password, it will lock out that IP address and just be like, you've had your chance, try again in an hour, to kind of reduce the incoming torrent. Yeah, it reduces the incoming torrent of attempts on your website. And it will also scan for code changes that aren't part of regular updates. So if someone does get into your website and changes something, it'll be like, oh, this file looks a bit strange, are you sure about that? And it'll be able to tell you which file is has been changed outside of the normal update routine. But then there's also user negligence. Again, using unique passwords, storing them safely, only communicating them when necessary. I mean, I do handle a lot of sensitive information for my clients, for example, information about their domain name, so I can link them up to manage hosting. And I always make sure that's sent over an encrypted connection, or it's given to me in person or over the phone, you know, just so that I can keep it safe, and obviously encourage them to change it again as soon as I've done what I need to do. And then, of course, backing up. Once a website is hacked, it can be very hard to find that exact issue, especially if you don't have something like WordFence available, and finding out exactly what's been changed and where. And WordPress is, you know, there are so many files in WordPress that you can tinker with and insert code into that sometimes it can be really hard to actually find the malicious code. So having that regular backup in case your site gets broken, either through a hacker or sometimes through user error. Sometimes you delete something you didn't mean to delete, or you change something and you didn't mean to change it. And so having that backup of a few days ago is really helpful to kind of jump back and just go, okay, let's start again. Obviously on e-commerce websites that can be a little bit more complicated because you'll have had you might have had orders come in and that sort of thing, so that they will need to be replaced manually. But yeah, having that plan B is never a bad thing either.
Yeah, well, at Bridge Cloud we talk a lot about DR planning, and you know, in that situation, for those who don't know the acronym, disaster recovery planning, it's a big subject which I like to cover with people. It is shocking though how many websites do go through this. I mean, I've been in this sector now for nearly 20 years, and I've seen a lot of this type of stuff that you're talking about happen, but I think people are just taking it for granted that it'll never happen to me, or I'll never have that experience. I mean, the backup situation of websites, I can't tell you how many people I've come across that don't back up their website, they don't see it as being important. And I said, well, that's a serious failure at the host end, but also customers don't ask about it. They just assume that it's being backed up or it's being protected.
Yeah, not all hosts will provide that as well. Sometimes
No,
sometimes it's part of the service, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, well, it costs the host, you know, so it's an additional service that needs to be charged for. But unfortunately, some people are just trying out there to sell whatever they can as the cheapest, and we've moved into that kind of commodity, whatever is cheapest. But people are gradually starting to turn. I'm talking to people this week who really want to see value for money. Now they're really looking at things very differently. It's not about, you know, fighting down to the cheapest price. It's what value you can bring to the table, and people are really appreciating that a lot more, especially at the moment.
Especially when things go wrong and they wish they'd have paid that little bit more for that little bit better security, or that you know, the extra backups and that sort of thing.
Well, I think
it costs a lot more to recover.
Absolutely. Well, do you want to pay the designer again, or do you want to pay to back it up? You know?
Yeah.
So let's move on then. I mean, this kind of leads on to what we've just been talking about, really. How important is, you know, having a good host?
Well, I've been through a few of them as I got started. Obviously, I host websites for my clients, and I also do deal with websites that are hosted elsewhere. But what I always say to clients is that the key things for your website, aside from the design and how well it communicates and the actual marketing perspective of it, from the technical perspective, you want to take care of the accessibility. So making sure that it's responsive to screen sizes, because most of our viewing now is on mobiles, and also considering people who might have visual or hearing impairments, color blindness, where contrasting colors might be an issue, and things like dyslexia, where text that is embedded in images can't be read by a screen reader because there's no text for the screen reader to actually read. Things like that that are often forgotten. Next to that as well, obviously, is security, which we just talked about. And speed, because speed will affect not only the effectiveness of your website and whether or not people will actually stay on the page, but also things like your search engine ranking, because slower sites, again, they'll get less traffic in general and less, they'll have a higher bounce back rate. That's going to affect your SEO ranking. Most speed issues, some of them are caused by having too many plugins or not caching or not doing all these sort of little optimizations and tweaks. Images are too big, that kind of thing. But once you get to that point where you've optimized everything you can, the bottleneck is always hosting. And And I mean, hosting needs to be secure, so the backups, and obviously, ideally, if you have two-factor authentication on your login, that's ideal as well, where you get a text message sent to your phone, or you have an authenticator app to make sure people can't get in sort of through that method. But they also need to be fast. And budget hosts, to name a few, GoDaddy. I'm going to throw some shade now. GoDaddy, Bluehosts, 1&1, and there's some of these other companies. They do provide the bare minimum, unless you go for their extreme packages, which they will charge a premium for. In general, these budget hosts, they provide the bare minimum. Your site will work. They will give you barely any technical support when things go wrong. And there's a good reason for that. It's not necessarily their fault. It's also the fact if they're charging less, they can afford to give less support. And not every website, WordPress websites vary dramatically in the software that is added to them, and what that website might contain. So, you go to them with an email issue, they might be able to fix it in 5 minutes, that's fine. But you go to them with a website issue, and that website could be a completely different configuration to anything they've ever worked with before. And for them to troubleshoot that for you on an individual basis, you can't be expecting to pay, £4 or £5 a month, and they're going to spend an hour or two digging through your website to try and actually fix it when they've never seen it before. So, I have had a few people come to me and say, my support is terrible with my hosting company. It's like, well, they're only hosting your website. They're not there to actually be your technician. So, they're just providing a service and making sure that service works. What you do with your website, or if you have errors and that sort of thing, that's not their domain, really.
No, we have exactly the same issues in our traders. I'm sure you can appreciate people not understanding the difference between a service and support. It's like, well, we can't support it for the price of the service. It's not profitable, and we have to charge for the support as a complete separate entirety.
I like a phrase which is buy cheap, buy twice.
Yes, so true.
Yeah. It's very true. You're very true.
And we've all done it. We've all bought something cheap, whatever it was, and then we think, I shouldn't have done this. Shouldn't have done this.
I'm like that with shoes, actually.
No, I don't believe that.
They look really nice, but they last about 3 wears, and I'm like, oh, what have I done?
Which means you had to go buy more shoes.
Yeah, I know. What a shame.
Oh, dear.
I'm not actually one of those women that buys a lot of shoes, to be fair. I spend a lot of time in my office in my slippers, so I don't afford shoes. But yeah, you definitely get into that cycle of buying cheap things more often, and then actually end up paying more in the long run. So,
well, this will make you smile, by the way, guys. Just a little cheeky secret. I've actually got more pairs of shoes than Caroline. There you go.
Wow.
Holy moly.
Yeah. There you go.
That is very cheeky.
Chris, really?
I know, terrible, isn't it? But then she's got more clothes than me. There you go. So it's a bit of a trade-off.
I would hope so.
All right, moving on. Okay, have we got any more to kind of talk about keeping the hosting right? I think
just
there's a little bit more, isn't there?
There is a bit of in the web design community, it would probably be regarded as a bit of a, what do you call it, a scandal. But there's a company called not that kind of scandal, not as fun. But EIG is a company that owns a lot of different hosting companies, and they're small hosting companies that they've bought out over the years. Some of the ones that they own, for example, are HostGator, Bluehost, FastDomain, and there's if you search for EIG hosting companies, you'll find a long list of all these tiny companies they've bought out. A few big ones like HostGator and Bluehost, but generally people bounce between them a lot. And they'll try and find a better host, and they'll find that they'll try and beat it on price as well. And they'll end up with the same company, essentially. The support is all outsourced, and they'll end up with the same company that they thought they were moving away from under a different name, with the same standards and the same service. So if you are looking to get hosting from a budget host just to start you off, do check that list and make sure you're not going for an EIG company, because they are horrendous.
They're all the same thing.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, I've had my pay, and that's why I've got little hair these days in working with organisations such as this. Okay, let's talk about what to look. We've talked about what to look for in a good host, haven't we? Really, within that. Yeah. So Yeah, go on. Let's just quickly touch on that then. So we're not happy with the host that we've got. What have we really got to look for? Give me two or three bullet points that would you say are going to be important?
So speed, security
Yeah.
are the main ones. Automatic backups are brilliant. There are plugins on WordPress. If you have a WordPress website, you want to back up to your Dropbox or your Google Drive or your OneDrive or anything like that, then there are plugins that will connect with those as well, but you usually pay a small monthly fee for those. So you could back up to both places just for the extra, the extra.
Can I just
peace
drop
of mind.
something in there? I just want to drop something into this one that adds some value to it. Something which I've seen a lot with websites, and when I've asked for backups and such like, is that the backup actually backs up to the same host. So they're not actually, they don't back up to a separate piece of infrastructure for whatever reason. I think it's done for speed and getting the website back online and convenience, but it's not a good move really. But I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, Karen. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're quite right. SSL certificates are now considered the standard. So really, they should be providing free SSL. Usually, it's Let's Encrypt, which for most small businesses is going to be good enough. But your SEO ranking will, your search engine ranking will suffer if you don't have that. And it will also, browsers these days, more modern browsers, which most people are using because they update automatically, will flag websites without an SSL certificate. So you want to make sure that income's included in your package. Some companies will charge extra for an SSL certificate. Make sure if you are paying for an SSL certificate, but I will get into that in a minute, make sure that you are getting some kind of warranty with it, because you can get an SSL certificate for free. It shouldn't be a paid service. And obviously you want to have great support. You ideally want to have a phone number you can ring or a live chat. If it's opening a support ticket that you're going to wait a week for, it's not ideal when your website's down. You're losing business. So find somewhere with with good support. And the best question really to ask on forums and things if you're looking for a host is, I've got a WordPress website, or I've got a website of this particular kind, Drupal, Joomla, that kind of thing. Where can I get good hosting for it? Who's got the best support? Because that will make the difference and make it worthwhile. If you then wanted to look at having a managed solution, so you're not opening your own support tickets, you're not dealing with any of the updates and all the technical stuff, and you just want to just set it and forget it, then there are managed hosting solutions, which is something that I offer for my clients as well. And for non-clients, people don't have to have their website built with me, but if it's WordPress, then I can manage host it. And so I act as a mediator between the technical side of things and the client. So there's no jargon, no opening support tickets. I can also help with things that aren't normally covered by technical support, like, I've deleted a page on my website. Can you help me get it back? That kind of thing. Or adding extra features, which the support will invariably charge you to do if they're willing to do it at all. So yeah, and as well, like I said earlier, if you don't update your plugins, you don't update your themes and your WordPress core software, you're going to leave yourself exposed to vulnerabilities. So your managed hosting package should also include updates and things like security scans and uptime monitoring, so that if your site does go down, and you don't check it, because you don't often check your own website. If you're not actively posting a blog post or updating content, you might not realize it's gone down. And the last thing you want is to find out that it went down a week ago, and you've been sending people to it and they've just been looking for it and going, well, it's not there, and then leaving it. So an uptime monitor is ideal, because then within 2 minutes if it's gone down, and then you can work at how figure out how to fix it, or have the managed hosting service figure out how to fix it for you. So those are kind of like I do have that for like the packages that I offer. I will drop a link in the chat in a moment for the managed hosting, and also includes things like amendments and higher levels of security and that sort of thing. For people who just don't want to be hands-on, because you've got better things to do. Let's be frank. Most of us have all got better things to do than tinker with our websites.
I actually think this is different. When I'm looking at hosting providers and such like, it's all about, cheap. It isn't something which I hear about that often. So yeah, it's definitely something that you need to plug a bit more, and we'll certainly plug you as a company as well, where we can, to try and get people on board to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okie dokie. So you did touch on this a little bit in the last question, but what's actually going to hurt my search engine ranking? What's going to stop me from getting to the top of Google?
Yeah. So, I mean, the main thing that's going to stop you from getting to the top of Google for your search terms is other people. And by that I mean your competitors, because they're going to be doing everything they can to stay at the top of the list. Of course, you're always going to be competing for search engine ranking. But there are certain things that will definitely harm your search engine ranking. So having no SSL certificate, duplicated content. So I've seen some businesses, for example, plumbers or tradesmen who work in several different areas, they'll have a page for each area just to try and get the keywords for, for example, Market Harborough, Leicester City, Oadby, Wigston, and they'll put that into, they'll have the same content but change those words to try, thinking that will help their search engine ranking, because it'll be based on a page by page basis. But if you're duplicating content across your website, or if you're copying someone else's content, of course, they're going to notice that. And trust me, nothing compares similarities quite like a bot. That's what they do. They can pick up on similarities and plagiarism much better than humans can in most cases. So so they're going to notice that, and that's actually going to hurt your ranking more than help it, even if you are trying to market yourself to different areas with the same content. And also non-responsive design, because now so many people are using mobile phones and iPads to access the internet and to browse websites. If it decides that then there are tools on Google, for example, that will allow you to kind of get an idea of how responsive your website is. But if your text is decided to be too small, or your links are too close together, it's not just about how it fits on the page and how it sort of stacks on the page to be viewable on a mobile, but it's also how usable it is for someone tapping the screen with their finger, which I think is a really good way to look at it. It's not just, will it fit on the screen? It's, can I access? Can I do what I need to do on the website with that screen?
Yeah, I see this time and time again. Websites just aren't being tested properly afterwards in different environments. In fact, I can give you 3 or 4 sites I've only used in the last couple of weeks that just haven't been able to use them properly. Either the keyboard gets in the way and covers kind of the website where you're trying to put the text in, or the text isn't laid out correctly and ends up being kind of bunched together.
Pop-ups are worse, because now there are so many pop-up blockers. People are using overlays, which is fine if you've got an event running, or you've got a special offer code or something that you kind of want to push in. It's beneficial. Or if you click a link knowing that something is going to open for you, like you're opening a contact form that opens as an overlay. Because an overlay is considered part of the web page, it's not going to be blocked by a pop-up blocker, because it's been there on the web page the whole time. It's just only being displayed now. It's being revealed to you. So because it's part of that page, sometimes people don't consider, okay, how's this pop-up going to look on a mobile? And it can be too long, or it can cover content, or there's no close button, and it reaches all edges of the screen, and the only other option to get rid of it is to click outside of the box, but you can't because there's no room to, and things like that. It's about usability and testing and making sure that it's fit for purpose at the end of the day.
And
Google is getting a lot.
And maybe giving it to different people to try as well. So not just giving it to one person to test, maybe give it to somebody a bit younger and somebody a bit older, and they can all have a little go with it before it gets published.
Yeah, I mean, I try and test it on as many platforms as I can when I build a website. I also try and get a few different people to test it, because everyone's habits are a bit different. Everyone, interacts with websites in a slightly different way. They'll pick up on different things. And so there's nothing better than having multiple sets of eyes giving you feedback, because then you'll get more rounded feedback rather than just going, that looks okay to me, it'll do. So yeah, definitely that. So again, like, search engines are getting incredibly intelligent. And then I think another thing I wanted to mention as well, with things like backlinks, don't buy them. It's okay if they're generated organically and you're being listed on directories and that sort of thing. But if you're just buying backlinks that are being listed on websites that are known for providing paid backlinks, that is going to damage your reputation with search engines, because they're going to know that you paid for that backlink. And things like trying to hide. There was a craze years ago, which I'm glad to say is slowly dying off, but you still see it on the occasional really old website, and it's where people have put in links around their website, or they've put in keywords at the bottom hoping to rank for them, but they've made the text the same color as the background to try and hide them, so that they can squish as many. Yeah, it was a big thing. It was you'd squish as many keywords as possible onto this website that was sort of blended in, and unless you like tried to highlight it with your cursor, you'd never know it was there. But Google does. And if it doesn't think there's a high enough contrast between the colors that people can actually see it, they're not going to consider it content, and they're just going to.
Well, it's still going to be the source code, isn't it? And that's what they're reading.
Yeah. So
Oh.
yeah, but doing little things like that used to work 15 years ago. It doesn't work anymore.
What about these websites that kind of, just before we move on to the next question, I mean, there's a lot of kind of directories out there and websites where you haven't actually put your details in them. It's as if they've kind of extracted your information and published them without even you asking them to do them. Are they damaging as well?
In most cases, they shouldn't be.
No.
Yeah, it depends if it is just a directory. I mean, I've been linked on, you know, on some bigger directories like Yell before without ever giving them my details. I'm not quite sure how they got them. Unless someone has done it for me, in which case thanks. But you know, sometimes you will be listed, and that's okay as a backlink. It's when it's a backlink farm and they're known for that.
Oh, okay.
And it's, you know, that's kind of when it's a problem. Generally, being listed on extra directories isn't an issue unless the directory itself has got the bad reputation. And
Yeah,
you can always request for your details to be taken down as well if you're not comfortable with that. So.
Oh, that's good then, because I'm thinking, for example, I mean, Silex is one I'm thinking of. Is quite popular, but my old business is obviously still in a lot of different directories and bits and pieces online. That's completely irrelevant now. So maybe I could work on maybe getting those ditched. Okay, cool. We talked about SSL certificates earlier. There's paid ones, there's free ones, and such like. Do I really have to pay for it, or can I just get away with the free one?
So no, you don't have to pay for it. Ideally, again, your hosting provider should allow you to have a free SSL certificate. It should be the standard now. It has been for a few years, and if they don't provide it, they are well behind, and you'll be better off finding another host. But you're right. There are three kind of main flavors of SSL certificate. The first one is the free one. The second one is the paid one, and the third one is paid, and it's called extended validation. So I'm just going to run through sort of what they do for a start, so you can kind of get a better idea of how they work. So an SSL certificate will encrypt the data between the server and the browser, so where your website is stored versus where it's being viewed. Mobile phone, you know, desktop, whatever. It will, so that any information being viewed on your computer has been encrypted end to end. So if someone tried to intercept that data along the way, all they're going to get is a bunch of gibberish, which they're not going to have the unencryption code to make sense of it, basically to uncipher it, if you will. Importantly, it also means that any data that you send to that website's host, to the website server, is also encrypted. So if you're providing things like financial details, credit card details, your name and address, how many children you have, your dog's name, you know, passwords especially, and all that kind of stuff, manual stuff as well as automatic stuff, so things like your IP address, which can be tracked by Google Analytics, you know, and potentially cookies and things as well. That is interceptable if you don't have that SSL certificate. Now, we all like to think of our hosts, our internet service providers as keeping us safe and, you know, providing that secure connection. But we're not always viewing the internet from home. Sometimes we're viewing it from a coffee shop with open Wi-Fi, you know, and you don't have to enter a password, or a gym, you know, you listening to music or something on there, and you're potentially opening yourself up to a connection that is insecure. So having these things in place means that you know, the data is safe between the two, and it's that private conversation between browser and server. So the free version just encrypts that data. Does you know, no kind of guarantee that it will work necessarily, but generally speaking, unless it's a master hacker, the likes of which I've not heard of outside of fiction, it's usually going to be enough. The paid version uses a more complicated encryption that just makes it harder to break. in it, they should also offer that warranty. So if you, for example, lose some data in a data breach, and some passwords get stolen, or some financial information gets stolen, and you get sued, for example, they'll offer that warranty as insurance. The extended validation certificate is the highest level, and it's fairly new. It's still kind of slowly being adopted, but that offers the highest amounts of financial compensation, and it also gives you that coveted green padlock that you might see in your browsers, and that will basically not only show you that it's a certified website, but also who it's been certified by, because with the first two, you don't actually have to provide your business details to get those certificates. You could just click, you could be anyone certifying a website. Whereas this basically lets the customer know that when they're viewing a website, it belongs to a legitimate company and it's registered to a certain address, and you're above board and you're saying, this is my website, I'm putting my stamp on it. It's ideal for e-commerce and bigger brands, and it just helps to build a lot of trust, as well as having that extra financial security there in case something does go wrong, because sometimes they just do.
So let's say then if you've got an e-commerce website, really you've got to pay for it really to protect yourself. If it's a brochure-driven website, then really just use the free one.
Yeah. I mean,
Is that fair?
I do host a bunch of e-commerce websites, and they're fairly small sales. And what they tend to do is they have the free SSL certificate, but their payment provider is someone like PayPal, which takes them off-site to actually take their payment details. So the only details that could be stolen from that site are order details, so names and addresses and what they've purchased. But the actual financial information isn't on their website. So that is another way. Some people don't like PayPal, they'd rather use Stripe or WorldPay or something, and that might need to be, Stripe, I know for a fact, will not work on your website unless you have an SSL connection, unless it's that HTTPS. Stripe won't work because it needs to trust that their website is going to keep people's financial information secure. So it gives you an idea of kind of how important it is in sort of from the aspect of financial information. But again,
cool.
Those will work with free versions. You don't have to pay for them, but if something goes wrong, you better hope you have business insurance that includes cybersecurity. So just in case.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So let's move on to our final question of the day. So, and then we'll open up for questions from the audience as well, if that's all right. So, when you're building a website, what does it involve? What's the process look like?
Oh, okay. So, I will be honest from the outset, it's not just about the web design and making it look pretty. It's not even about the code. It's not even about the hosting or the security. It's the content that will drive people to the website. It's offering that value and offering them an incentive to be there, providing them with some information, or encouraging them to take action, or something that is actually what they want to see. It's a marketing tool. So you want to have that content that will drive people and be found in search engines. You want to have that brand that is ready, so that you can create a consistent vision of your brand across any social media channels that you have and across your website as a whole, to make sure that it's all it's all professional. You're not having like 4 different fonts being used on one web page, and people know that it's you and it looks clean and presentable. But it's about crossing digital barriers and building trust. So if you're building your own website, to start with, you could create a style guide for your brand. You could write the content, highly recommend it before you do anything else, unless you hire a copywriter, of course. You could just sketch out sort of the layout of your website on pen and paper, or in a graphic design program like Photoshop, Sketch. I use Adobe Experience Design to do the actual design for custom build websites. And then you want to gather together, and this is a lot of people's least favorite part, photographs of yourself, because people buy from people. And graphic design, if you want to have illustrations and things, you'll need to have those commissioned or purchased from a stock library. It is time consuming, and there is a lot of project management that goes into it. So if you are going on the DIY, this is before you even start building the website, by the way, this is just collecting the information. So if you're going the DIY route, be prepared for that learning curve, not just in the technical aspects of it, but also in the actual building a marketing tool, because essentially that's what it is. So, I mean, many projects, depending on their budget, will involve working with copywriters, graphic designers, photographers, SEO experts. I know a bit about SEO, and I do sort of a basic setup SEO, but ongoing SEO, I can't be master of all trades. So I choose my specialisms in web design, content creation and project management, and then other things I will pull in specialists for, outsourcing or referring to people who can help, because it is a massive project at the end of the day. And you know, and social media managers. I'm meeting with someone on Monday to talk about social media, because I don't have the time, and you know, I just want to have it taken care of, because it's not something that I want to spend a ton of time learning. So even for me, working in this environment where it's all sort of very interconnected, there are still certain things that I don't know, and I'm happy to admit when I don't know something, and I'll go and get help. But you need to be prepared for all of that, and the fact that at some point you are going to need help and advice. Facebook groups are really good, but they're not going to spend hours with you walking you through it. So yeah, just be aware that the content is most of the battle, but then the actual building of the website comes after that. And ideally you want to build a website based on its content, not the other way around, because the best way to design something is to communicate the message, and the best way to do that is to have the message ready that you want to communicate. So for me, in my sort of daily job, for me it involves obviously communication with the clients, finding out what they need, who their target market is, creating buyer personas and lead magnets, and trying to create that kind of that sales funnel for them. The project management of all these different aspects of the content and the hosting and the actual design and build of the websites, finding resources for them, so stock images, other suppliers, and software that they might want to use to extend their website in custom ways, and mainly problem solving. It's literally I'm solving a problem for someone, so that's before I even touch any design or coding. is putting these pieces together so that it all runs smoothly and it comes out on a decent deadline. So there is a lot to it, and I don't want to scare anyone off. By all means, have a go building your own website. It can be a ton of fun. I started doing this when I was 12. I'm 30 now. I started doing this when I was 12 for fun, and I used to build like fan websites for like The Sims and Pets and like silly games that I used to play back then, and I used to have downloads for like different sim outfits and wallpapers for their houses and stuff, and that's literally where the interest came from. Back in 2002, that's where the interest came from, was just realizing that I can create with this, I can create this thing. But obviously back then I didn't have the marketing knowledge that I know now. I didn't have the business knowledge, and I wasn't really doing it for a purpose. So I've spent time doing other things since, and then I've come back to it with all this other knowledge, and I love my job very much, but it has been a learning curve, and I've been doing this professionally for almost 5 years now. And there's still so much to learn, but I've also realized I can't learn everything. Sometimes I do need to ask for help, and I do Google better than the average bear, and a lot of it is knowing what questions you need to ask. So if I don't know something, I'm more than happy to say I don't know. But again, it's ask for help, watch tutorials, get your content together first of all, and know where you're going, have a plan. So yeah, and if you need to get someone involved, make sure there's someone who is going to walk you through it, and isn't just going to sort of throw it back to you and say, well, you need to do all of this. So yeah. Oh, you've muted yourself, Chris.
I've unmuted myself. Yeah.
Oh no,
I'm now back. I'm back in the room.
There you go.
Okay.
Apologies for the slight disruption a little while ago. A certain person wanted something out of the room, but yeah, it's all done now. I think we need to give Lexi a quick applause. That was really, really good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. Really, really, honestly, the content that you've just given away today is so powerful, so rich, excellent. Peter.
I'm really honoured to be here. Thank you very much, guys.
No, it's really good. I mean, I really think it'll do you proud, this video, when we share it and we get it online. And I think with permission as well, with the answers to some of the questions, because obviously the audience won't know, we did a bit of preparation in advance. If we can maybe publish some of the contents in some way to accompany the video as well, so people can use that would be good, wouldn't it? Maybe put like a PDF or something like that, maybe, that we can put with the video.
Yeah.
Peter, sorry, Chris, can I just say something? So I don't want to sound like condescending or arrogant, but I've been having websites built for about 30 years. And in that time, there are like a handful of website people who I actually think know what they're talking about. You're in that handful now, Lexi.
Oh, thank you.
Because you're one of the first people that I've ever heard talk about building websites that actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So really, congratulations.
I've had good mentors as well. I've been working with other agencies for a little while, doing some white label work, and it's amazing. Like, if I was just doing this alone, I wouldn't have half the knowledge that I have now, because again, it's knowing what questions to ask, and it's learning from experience, and the best way to learn from experience is often through other people's experiences and asking for help. So I've had a really great bunch of people around me as well.
I was going to say to you, because I looked at your LinkedIn, right? I was going to say to you, how does an accountant become a website designer and one that knows what they're talking about? Now you dropped us a clue there with your I started at 12. So what happened after that, if I may ask?
So obviously at 12, I was doing it for fun. When I was about 16, 17, I started working in retail because I had no idea what direction I wanted to go in life. When I think I was about 21, 20, I did a bit of traveling in the meantime. When I was about, I'm spotlighted, that's scary. 2021, I started doing some work for an accounting firm. Well, no, it wasn't, in an accounts department rather. And I was being AAT trained, and I was there for about 9 months. And I did really enjoy the work. It was a bit soulless for me. Not that I didn't enjoy the problem solving, but the lack of creativity did kind of send me a little bit mad. And the office politics, honestly, that was hard to deal with. After about 9 months of that, my mental health was not good. I ended up walking away from that in a right state. I'd been trying to study in the evenings, so it was also quite a long drive. I was leaving at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning, and 2 nights a week I wouldn't get home until 11 o'clock at night because I had classes for the AAT course in the evenings. And it was like 2 trains and a bus to get there and back because I don't drive. And that's my next year's goal, is to learn to drive. And I was like, what have I always enjoyed doing? What have I always done for fun? What have I, can I make a career out of that? So I was like, I'm going to start my own business. And at that point, I was not prepared to start my own business in any way, shape or form. I had very limited sales experience. I'd done some retail and some field sales for commission and bits and pieces, but I was still very nervous about talking to people. I've had anxiety since I was a kid. So breaking through those barriers was massive for me. And over the last few years, like I said, I sent out an email when I moved up to Leicester from Kent. I sent out an email, and I just sent it to a bunch of agencies and was like, could I just do some free intern work for you? Can I just just learn what you do? And if you like me, you can hire me. If not, that's okay. I just want to kind of get some experience in the business. And one of the people who replied was Carl Craig West at Buzzwebs in Odeby in Leicester, and he has been absolutely amazing. We had a chat over coffee, and then bear in mind, I hadn't worked with WordPress up until this point. I'd been hand coding everything myself, HTML and CSS, and I was just learning JavaScript at that point. Like I was years behind because I've been doing other things. But I had kind of the basics under my belt, and so he started teaching me sort of WordPress and how plugins work and hosting and everything else. I started doing some contract work for him, as well as some contract work for his graphic designer Claire McCabe at Purple Star Design. and then I started doing some bits and pieces for another agency in Market Harborough for a little while. And this was 4.5 years ago now. So during that time, obviously, different problems have come up. We've dealt with different types of clients, different types of businesses. And so I've learned an awful lot about how to understand clients and their markets and what, what that means. And I'll be honest with you, Carl, he'll say that I'm his, his code monkey, his technical sort of whiz in the corner. But he is also my marketing whiz, because he's the one who really brought me out of my shell and helped me understand how to actually, have the most effective calls with clients. So it's been a long journey, and it's not been by any means easy. But I've had amazing people around me to help, and a couple of therapists, to be fair, along the way.
Well, yeah, I think you clearly have had, good mentorship, and you have a lot of experience, because you can tell, honestly, and so that's great. And it was sort of curious, because I sort of say, and I'm trying to remember this because I haven't said it for ages, but website designers typically come from one of about 3 backgrounds, and it's not accountancy. that's what had me curious, right? I mean, they're either like SEO people that have decided to design websites, aren't they? Or they're graphic design people that have decided to do that, or maybe IT people. Maybe that's the third one, Chris. IT people that decide to build websites. I don't know. Yeah. But fantastic. I'm just like a massive WordPress fan, so that's brilliant. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter, do you know Chris and Vimal at all?
No, I don't think we met, have we?
Do you want to do a quick intro of yourself before we end
yeah, if you like. So
yeah,
I could bang on forever, couldn't I, as you well know. So keeping it really short, Peter Roper, family businessman, founder of the Family Business Practice. It's 153 family businesses across the West Midlands, sharing business development, sharing best practice, networking together, etc. 6 years old as of the end of this month. That I've been doing business development for 40 years, but I don't like it when somebody says that. Say, bless you, Lexi. That would make you another one of my daughters, basically. My kids are 42, 37, and 34, and that's fine. So I'm known as a speaker and an author and all that sort of stuff. And the Family Business Practice, we try hard to get people together and grow their businesses, especially since lockdown with COVID. Well, I had to have a brand new website in March. Lexi, our website talked about the lovely venues, everybody eating lovely grub. It was all very like that.
Yeah.
And I sat here for 3 days when we were locked down, thought, that's all got to go. And I talked to my webman, and the first thing he said was, you're going to need a new website. I went, oh, yeah, I know. Forgive me, Lexi. I think websites are an absolute pain in the neck. But why they're a pain in the neck is because it means we have to do a lot of work. In other words, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I thought it was excellent what you were talking about, which was the fact that you can only make a website as good as the content you give it, and that can only be as good as the vision of the people in the first place.
Yeah.
And that can only be correct if they have the vision of what the business is, where it's going, what they're trying to achieve. You can only be as good as that, and if they haven't got that, then you're always going to find it challenging. And so, I've had lots of websites built for me over the years and stuff, and I'm no technical person. But what I do know is absolutely that you're absolutely right, and you've obviously clearly learned the whole area of that, which is long before all the technical stuff. So I'm with Chris. Yeah, absolutely. It's clear you've learned an awful lot. Know what you're doing. It's great to see you working on something you were passionate about. If that's what you were doing when you were 12, then you found it.
Like, if you're not sure what to do in life, look back to what you enjoyed doing in your teens. And what you had a passion for. Yeah. And that for me was it. Yeah, I was very much an indoor girl, not gonna lie, with my computer tapping away. But it's now it's now a huge passion. So thank you.
That's good. Yeah, you can see that. You can see that though, just the way you are and the way you're expressing yourself. So it's clearly what you love doing, which is lovely to see. Why on earth did you choose accountancy, for crying out loud?
I'd moved to a new area and I was looking for a job, and it paid pretty well and it had sort of career progression, and I'd just moved in with a guy who had a son from a previous relationship, and we needed something stable and something that we could kind of grow with. So that's why I went into that. I was just sort of fell into it, really. It wasn't
as we all do.
Numbers. Yeah, it wasn't like
as we all do. We've all done it.
Even doing my own accounts now, I get a little bit sweaty. I'm just like, oh no. And doing my taxes and that sort of thing. It's not something that I would want to do again. But it was educational, you know, and I'd learned a decent amount about managing my own accounts, so that's kind of served me well as well, I guess, in that regard. So yeah, it's all a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
Yes, it definitely is. Sorry, Chris, was that good enough?
Anthony, that's all good. Anthony's just really quiet in the background there. If you got any questions, anything you want to say to us today? No? Okay.
So I think he's just got us on in the background, just listening like a radio.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's cool. Yeah, so you're listening to.
I can tell you a little bit about the company he works for, if you want.
Okay, so is this Anthony your
my ex-partner? Yeah. So he works for Affinity Trust, and they provide supported living for people with learning disabilities and autism. So he's the operations manager for the south of England. So he's not really a businessman.
Right. Okay. He's just taking interest in what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just curious. He's there for moral support because he knows I get nervous.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap things up there then, and say thank you to everybody for people who have popped along today. I really appreciate it. We'll be doing the same thing again next week at 11 o'clock, and next week I'm talking to. Who am I talking to next week?
Somebody.
Let's have a little look in my calendar. I think it's going to be a recording next week because I've got to take Caroline to hospital. Yes, I believe I'm talking to a business coach next week, but she's yet to confirm definite she can do it. But we're most likely going to be recording it in advance of the meeting, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, last-minute trip to the hospital with Caroline. But yeah, that's all good, guys. Thanks ever so much for coming along, and I'll say thank you and goodbye.
See you guys. Well done, Lexi.
Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you all. Yeah.
See you guys.
And you, Chris. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I'll call you in a minute, Lex.